All right. Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Unlicensed. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Jill. I am the host of Unlicensed. Hopefully, you guys already know what we do here. But if not, if a friend recommended you, if a parent, family friend, anything, this is the podcast where real women write in anonymously about any topic that they're struggling with during the week. If that's meal prep, parenting, mindfulness, manifestation, dating, relationship advice, we literally cover anything. And I only interview female guests anywhere from relationship coaches, therapists, friends, family, and social media influencers to help join me in the studio to help offer you guys any sort of advice, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing with my life half the time. So I need people to help me out too. I am so excited for today's episode, guys. We are joined by Susan Morley. She is a parenting coach based out of Atlanta with over 10 years experience as a parenting coach and a certified addiction recovery empowerment specialist, as well as an educator and trainer. Welcome, Susan. I'm so excited. We were like chatting for so long today. I was like, this is going to be a great episode. How are you doing today? Welcome. Thanks for joining.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I'm so excited. Is this your first podcast or have you done
I've done podcasts before, but only like not in a studio.
Okay, fair.
So this is really nice. Okay, and it's super close to where I live.
Okay, so, I love that. We love a little commute, a close commute, which is so good. But so excited to have you here. We will announce what we're talking about in a few minutes for you guys. But as always, we like to get to know the guests a little bit more, learn more about your story and why you're here today too. I want to learn a little more about your journey to becoming a parenting coach, obviously. I was on your site and basically you're like a trainer for parents that are having any challenges with their children. You're there to help offer solutions to anything that they might be struggling with. So tell us why you found this passion for helping other parents with this. I know you're a mom as well. We were catching up about your kids and Thanksgiving and everything coming up too. So I don't know if your own personal experience as a mother wanted you to help other people as well, but let's talk about your journey to actually becoming a parenting coach in the first place.
Sure. So I think it kind of started, my background is an elementary educator. I taught in elementary school. And I didn't have kids when I started teaching. And I was really shocked at just, I don't know, I don't want to, but anyway, I'll just be blunt. I was have to say it. I really thought some of my parents, they were kind of clueless.
Yeah.
They just didn't, they were letting the kids rule the roost, run the show. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
I just couldn't. And then, so then I got pregnant and I had a child, and then I figured, now I'm going to probably be like them because,
I'm clueless too now.
Now I know.
Yeah.
But it didn't really happen that way. And I noticed that the other moms in my neighborhood, I lived outside the perimeter at the time, they were really struggling too with the toddler kind of behavior. And I was like, giving advice and helping these moms. And then I was like, let's start this little group and let me help you this. And I really started parenting coaching before I started parenting coaching, just with the moms that I knew.
Your personal relationships with them already.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it worked.
Yeah.
So as my children got older, of course, the challenges changed. I unfortunately did get divorced, and then I moved in town, and I started parenting coaching. Now, I wasn't like, I'm a full-time parent coach. I mean, the reality of it, I was definitely the gig economy. It was the Great Recession. I'd been laid off. And so it was always a side gig. And now, thank goodness, I can say this is what I do. This is my career. I do it full-time. I do it successfully. And I have helped, I really need to add them up.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many because I'll answer questions online. And so I help parents even if they're not my clients.
Yeah. Yeah. For you, when you were first, it's so cool that this kind of started for you when you, were noticing as a teacher, like, damn, these parents have no idea what they're doing. But then obviously when you became a mom, a lot of your friends and parent circles and things, you're seeing things that they may have been struggling with. Did you feel uncomfortable at all at the beginning giving them advice on things when you just became a mom? Or were you like, I got this in the bag. I have one kid, but I know what I'm doing. Did that feel weird or almost like imposter syndrome when you first started off?
No. And
That's good.
I think here's why.
Okay.
I think at that time, at my age, because I was a younger woman, I just was really confident and I thought I did know better.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes I nailed it.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think I gave advice when it wasn't asked for. And that I regret.
Yeah. Did that affect any relationships? Were you giving unsolicited advice to people and they were like, you don't need to hear this right now?
Yeah. So my BFF, Anilda,
Okay.
she said,
Love that name also.
I know. She was like, so Susan, I'm going to call you, but I'm just venting.
Okay.
And so she
had to set the boundary.
And I was like,
oops.
I am like advice giving all the time. So I learned and I don't advice give. And what I do now is much better, more respectful coaching where I am asking permission. And sometimes my clients are like, I hired you, just tell me. But I still ask permission because maybe they're just venting and I won't know. And I need to make sure that I'm not putting what my values are onto my client.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that was a big part of your coaching. You have this 6-step program where you have to kind of take it as a case-by-case basis when you're helping these different parents, looking at their internal values of what they want in their families, and then building this healthy, familial environment as well. What are those 6 steps? How do you kind of go about that? Because I feel like it is so easy to be like, okay, this is what you need to do. This is what works for me. But obviously some families are so different, even in what their values may look like. So how can you take what they need in their own relationships with their kids and then kind of bring that forth with the 6 steps that you kind of follow through with as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, it took me a while to get to developing those 6 steps.
I'm sure.
And I've, done a lot of parenting coaching. So I took my experience as a mother, as a parenting coach, all the books that I've read as an educator, and I developed these 6 steps. So the first, and I'll run through them really quickly. The first step is just what season of parenting are you in? Because sometimes if you have a teenager, but your teenager thinks that they're the center of the family, that's misplaced. And it'll be real obvious, right? We've seen that.
Yes.
And so you need to make sure that you're operating as a parent in the proper season of parenting.
That makes sense.
And so the next thing is you need to create a mission statement for your family and a vision for each child. And by doing that, it helps you stay on the same page as your parenting partner. And this will work whether you're married or not. You could even do this if you get along with an ex-romantic partner and you're co-parenting. This will totally work. So you use that mission statement. So you're parenting from the same playbook. And then a vision for each child because every child is different. You cannot parent each child the exact same way. And then we talk about the 5 needs, which really comes from choice theory. And in schools, it's called responsive classroom, and I call it responsive family. And what that says is that as humans, we all have these 5 needs. And when a need is not met, we are going to behave a certain way in order to get the need met.
Is this Maslow's like hierarchy of needs or something separate?
Similar. It's Glasser.
Okay.
And so what I like about it is that I train teacher train my clients to look at any misbehavior instead of that's disrespectful or that's rude. I ask them, okay, what need is your child trying to meet? A lot of times it's power.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm like, okay, how can we meet that need somewhere else? Because if you meet the need, then there's no reason to discipline or punish. Right? So then we talk about family responsibilities. We want everyone participating in chores. It's so good.
Important.
It's an entitlement buster, right? Kids need to be doing at least 20 minutes of chores a day. And that is the bare minimum. That is not going to hurt them. No pediatrician.
Cleaning a little bathroom's not going to kill you.
Make your bed. Feed the dog. Walk the dog. Like, this is good for children. Then we talk about how to have a family meeting. I have a very specific structure for that.
That's so fascinating. Because so many people will, especially parents, just like avoid conflict, I think, especially with their kids. If there's a kid that may not like that sort of confrontation. So I love that point too.
And there's 2 rules. Make it fun and make it short.
Because I'm going to be zoning out after like 10 minutes probably.
So we pop popcorn or play music and, really make it fun. Give everyone a job. And then if you're in the middle of a sentence and the timer goes off,
done.
Cut it off.
Done.
You
We're
gotta
done.
stop. It
so
doesn't
hard
give
them,
the
probably.
parents time to lecture, no lecturing. And then finally, the last step is we talk about discipline. And my definition of discipline is to teach, not to punish.
I love that.
And so we really are, because that's what we want. When we want to teach them how to XYZ so that they can be, all the parents I talk to, they want their children to be employable.
Yeah. Yes.
They want their children to be, so they say happy, which is sometimes a little problematic, but really what we want is for them to live a satisfactory life, have good relationships with people.
Definitely.
You know, and not be a jerk.
Yeah. And like be okay on their own when the time comes that parents may not be around at any point too.
Completely self-sufficient.
Yeah,
Yes.
100%. When you're talking with these different parents, and I love like the idea of, you know, having a family meeting, keeping it short, so important. I'm like, I wish my parents did that a little bit more. What's the most common theme do you see around parents of issues that they may be having with children? So is that tantrums, talk back? When you're speaking and kind of coaching these different parents, what do you find is the most similar issue that parents might be having with their children? Because like we said, every family is different, every child is different, but I do foresee that you might come into cases where you're like, okay, this parent said this. I just talked to a family last week. They're also struggling with this. Is there a common theme or issue that you might see within parents and children, and then vice versa? When, I don't know if you ever work with children one-on-one, but is there a common issue that children are like, my parents never listened to me and this is why I'm acting out? What does that look like on both ends too?
Yeah. So the answer is the same on both.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And it is what you said.
Yeah.
The parents say, my child doesn't listen to me. And the children say, my parents don't listen to me.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow. It's like they're just not hearing each other out for whatever that means.
Right. And so there's two ways to look at it.
Yeah.
One way is, what is it that the parents are saying is the problem, and what's the actual problem? Because it's not usually the same. And I know to the parents, it is a problem. If your child is not listening to you, don't run in the street, and your child runs in the street, that's a big problem.
Yes, 100%.
So, well, one thing I tell my parents, and they don't like it at first, is obey is not a 4-letter word. I mean, it is, but it's not a bad word.
Yeah.
It's not a curse word. It's okay that your children obey you because you don't want them running out of the street.
Yeah.
And so I teach them how to speak to their children so their children are more likely to listen to them. And often, I mean, I love saying this to my parents. People treat us the way we teach them how to treat us.
That's so true.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're ignoring you because you've allowed it.
Oof.
I know.
And then if you're
tough.
trying to bring it up too late in life, it might be hard for them just to switch over, basically.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny about that because when you're starting that when they're toddlers, it takes them longer to learn how to really listen to you the first time because their brains are not fully developed. Their frontal cortex isn't fully
idea
developed.
what's going on over there.
Very little. They just want, I want. When they're teenagers, it's tough because they're used to something for so long, but their brains are much more developed.
Yeah.
And so they learn it more quickly. Although it's a lot more painful to teach the lesson and for them to learn it because they're older and they're so used to it.
Yeah. And like the sense of ego and everything too that they've had so long in time after that as well.
Yeah. I just had a client and he told me, he said he's got an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
And he said that she burst into tears and she said, I don't understand what's happening because I have never had to do what you told me before.
Wow.
Like it was the first time and she's frustrated because she's used to him giving in. He's used to him setting a boundary and breaking it, setting the boundary and breaking it. She's like, what are you doing? You're changing the rules. And I said, she has every right to be upset.
Yeah.
And now you're changing and she has to obey the rules because she lives in your house.
Yeah. Do you feel like with parenting, I don't know if you're only coaching parents where their children are still living at home with them, or do you coach parents that are trying to build a different relationship with their child even after they move out of the house? What does that look like for you too?
Yeah. So typically most of my parents, they still have their children living with them.
Yeah.
Some of them, because of divorce or custody, they'll only live on weekends or something.
Okay.
And then some, their children are in college.
Yeah.
Usually not completely independent.
Yeah.
That really wouldn't,
Still paying
I don't
the
know how to
cell phone
help.
bill.
Yeah. No, that
For as
I
long
could
as
have
possible.
a conversation. Yeah, I'm like, we could talk about that. I've got a book for you to read.
I try to stay on my parents for as long as possible, and they're like, it's time to get off. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm 25, but it's fine.
I know.
It's too old for
it's
that
sad.
point. No, I love that. And what you're doing is so important, and I'm so excited for our topic today. We'll get more into it. But my last question for you, because it's going to help kind of with some of our conversation for later, is can you describe the 4 different types of parenting styles? So authoritarian, permissive, authoritative, and then...
It's lackadaisical.
Yes,
Right,
exactly.
Right. So,
Can you describe...
laissez-faire.
Yeah, and if you don't mind sharing too, what parenting styles you felt like you grew up with, and then what you kind of implemented in your own children's lives as well. Because I love to see how parents were parented, and then what they bring and what they want to change for the next generation of who they're raising as well.
Yeah. So Diana Baumrein did a longitudinal study, and they're still doing studies on the different parenting styles. So I'll start with the laissez-faire parent. These are parents who they don't give their kids a lot of attention, and they don't give their kids a lot of anything.
Yeah.
They don't pay attention to their kids.
Like neglectful.
And this is, they are neglectful.
Yeah.
And so that's the least common. And it's very sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad, for children. Another one is, and I'll end in authoritative, then we've got the permissive parent.
Yeah.
So this is sometimes called the doormat parent. This is a parent who lots and lots and lots of love.
Yeah.
Give them anything they want. So they get a lot of attention. They get a lot of love. So there's good things in that. They don't give any structure. They very rarely have boundaries. And if they do, they don't stick to the boundary.
Yeah.
So, and it's really, this one is meeting the parent's need more than the child's need. Because the parent wants the love, and it's, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the parent it cannot handle or tolerate their child being upset with them.
Yeah, any sort of conflict with the child. So they're like,
Yes.
well, whatever you need. The
Right.
child's like, shut up. And you're like, well, that's crazy. Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Oh, I know so many parents
They'll
like
make
that.
excuses for, well, my child. Well,
Yeah.
this is one I hear a lot. This is going to ruffle some feathers. Okay.
I love it. That's what we do here.
If your child can behave at school, your child can behave at home.
Definitely.
Okay. Well,
Definitely.
it's very common for parents to say, well, my child held it together all day at school, so then when they get home, they fall apart.
Absolutely not. No.
No.
If they can do it at 8 hours at school, you can come home and do the same thing
You
and be
can do it at
respectful.
home.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
such a good point.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So, get at me. Okay. So that's the permissive.
Yes.
What usually happens is on the flip side of the permissive parenting coin, you have the authoritarian. Right? So this parent loves their kids, lots and lots of love, and they give them a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But these are mighty controllers. These are the drill sergeants.
Ooh.
Dig that hole, fill it up,
Yeah.
dig it again.
Yeah.
And so what happens with them is that they love their kids.
Yeah.
There's good in that one too. But they're usually very afraid. They're very fearful that something bad is going to happen.
Wow.
And the fear is really, I won't be able to handle it if something bad happens. I can't handle it if my child disobeys.
Yeah.
So it's really, again, about the parent.
Wow.
And so a lot of times these people marry each other.
Oof.
Right? And so
Yeah.
then the authoritarian, let's just say the mother is the authoritarian.
Yeah.
And she's da-da-da-da. And the dad is like, it's okay. Come on, I'll buy you some ice cream.
Yeah.
And so they undermine each other.
Yeah.
It's very confusing for children.
Yeah.
And they're not really getting what they need. And for the authoritarian parent, you will get compliance in front of your face. But as soon as you're not there, that child is going to go wild.
That's like the stories you hear of the kid that like grew up so strict and then they go to college and go crazy
That's
or
right.
something like that. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what happens.
That's
Then you
interesting.
have the best one, which is the one I teach.
Yeah.
And the one I feel like my parents mostly were this.
Yeah.
We're all.
A little bit of everything.
We
Okay.
all have all of
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
So nobody should be getting on their high horse right now. I've done it all.
Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
done it all. And so that is the authoritative
Got it.
parent.
Okay.
Now, this is the parent who gives a lot of love,
Okay.
gives a lot of attention
Yep.
and has healthy limits and boundaries.
Yeah.
It's not a democratic home
Mhm,
because the
mhm.
parent has the final decision,
Yeah.
but the parent will listen to the
Yeah.
child.
Open discussion. It's not just a
Absolutely.
because I said so sort of situation.
Right.
Love it. Okay.
Although you can use that every once in a while because sometimes kids, they
When is a
push
good
it.
time to use that? Because I feel like my parents were so the because I said so
Mhm.
parents, and my brothers and I always talk about how we did not feel heard in a lot of situations. When is a good time to use the because I said so?
When a child won't let it go.
Okay.
When a child won't let go. So the first time you want
Yeah.
to listen,
Yep.
and I have a technique called the thinking chair where
Yeah.
you sit down, you get really comfortable, and you actually just really listen,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
intently listen.
Yeah.
And, I teach parents some techniques for the really good listening skills.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, is there anything else you
Yeah.
want to say?
Get it all out now.
Get it all out. Yeah. Okay, let me go talk to
Mhm.
my co-parent
Mhm.
and then we'll tell you
Yeah.
what we think. 98% of the
Mhm.
time, you're going to stick to your final,
Mhm,
what you
mhm.
had before. I
Yeah.
mean, but a couple of times you're going to be like, you know what?
They raised some good points. They had a
And
whole
you know what?
PowerPoint. Yeah.
And we shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
We're going to let them do that.
Yeah.
Like, so every once in a while, you will decide, I'm not going to be a jerk about this
Yeah.
just because I said it. I'm going to change my mind. I'm
Yeah.
mature enough that I can change my mind.
100%.
So listening, but if a child just absolutely not, you can, I don't have a problem with because I said so.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, bacon is supposed to be a condiment.
Yeah.
Y'all, it's supposed to be a condiment. When I found that out, I was like, that
Just
was
a
my
little
meat
bit.
source.
Just
Yeah.
a little bit. Here once in a while.
We're going to use because I said so, like it's a little condiment.
I love
right?
that. No, that's
Yeah.
so funny. Once in a while, guys, but you can use it. That's
Right.
such good advice, though, because you get it. There are those kids, even when I'm babysitting sometimes, that keep going on and on. After I hear them out, but I'm like, okay, we're still going to stick with what we kind of talked about. And you're like, okay, at this point, it's because I said so. I
Right.
think that's really good advice.
Another way to do it, if you just can't say it,
Mhm.
because I know a lot of parents overuse it, is you
Yes.
can look at them and say, asked and
Mhm.
answered.
Mm.
And then you have to walk away.
Yeah.
Because if that's a common mistake parents make is
Yeah.
they say, you're not going to Jim Bob's house.
Yeah.
And then they stand there
Yeah.
waiting for the argument.
Yeah.
Don't just
Looking
walk
for
away.
the reaction in
Yeah.
that
Just
sense.
walk
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Pick up a magazine. Don't
Yeah.
pick up your phone. That's a whole nother topic.
Okay.
Will you have me back
Yeah.
to talk about
Are you kidding me?
screen time?
Yes.
Oh my God. Because that's like, we have to have the whole time
Wait,
on that.
part 2. Are you kidding me? Duh. Yes.
Okay, that's an important one. Okay, good.
Okay.
We're
yeah.
already planning the next one. Okay.
I'm like, we're going to be talking for like
Yeah.
2 hours.
But you have to walk away because it does a couple of things. It demonstrates to your child, oh, mom, she's not even here. She's done.
Yeah. She's
But you don't
out
have
of the
to be a
combo.
jerk about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. You're not dismissing them. It's just like, we've already talked about this. We've like covered it. I'm like removing myself from the situation so it's not escalated.
Exactly.
Love that advice. That's so good. You guys are probably getting the best advice right now. I know you're tuning in, you're loving it. I think that is a perfect segue into our topic for today. We're talking about parenting styles, and it really does relate to what we're going to be speaking through, which I'm so excited about. We are talking about sibling rivalries today, guys, how they form, why they may go into adulthood, how parents can really affect some of that competition and competitiveness that happens between siblings. So this person wrote in and they said, my sister and I have literally never gotten along. It's felt like constant competition ever since we were little. Who's prettier? Who has better style? Who's more athletic? Who has more friends? She's older too, so I feel like I'm constantly comparing myself to her and what seems like her perfect life. I love my sister, but I feel like I don't really like her. I get super jealous when I hear my friends talk about how close they are with their siblings. I want that too, but I don't know how to fix things. She's going off to college next year, and I want to try to mend our relationship, but I don't even know where to start. Every time I try, I end up getting frustrated at how not close we are and back off. How can I fix a relationship and stop turning everything into a competition with her? I love this topic. I have 2 brothers. I related to this as well. First thing I want to start off with is your own personal experience, maybe with this topic. Do you have siblings? What did your relationship look like with them growing up? We'll get into like same-sex siblings versus different genders and everything, and how that may play more a role into sibling rivalries. But I'm excited a little more to hear about what that looked like for you growing up too.
Well, I'm the middle child, so
Okay, me too.
there are no
I knew I liked
photos.
you.
No photos, right? Like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? When, like, what we just left out the forgotten child.
100%.
Okay, so that's just a fact.
Yeah.
And the best child.
100%.
So I have an older sister. She's 5 years older,
Okay.
and I was tagging along all the time, and I annoyed her to no end.
They love it though secretly.
I think she did.
Yeah.
She might listen. She will definitely listen to this because she loves me and
Yeah.
I love her and we get along.
Yeah.
We just actually were in Myrtle Beach together
Cute.
with our younger sister too.
Fun.
So we have a much younger sister,
Okay.
second marriage. So we had a much younger sister.
Got it.
So we didn't really have any of that with her because she was so much
Yeah.
younger. But yeah, my older sister and I don't know. I feel like we got along fine once
Yeah.
we got a little older.
Yeah.
And then she's 5 years older, so she kind of went off. And I think this is more common when the ages are closer together.
I was going to ask you that. Do you feel like age gaps play a role? Because I see sibling rivalries more within my friends who are 2 to 3 years between their siblings versus I have some friends that have age gaps of like 10 to 15 years. And they're like, I didn't grow up in the house with this
Right.
person. So not only do I not really know them, but there was nothing really for us to be competitive about because we were in like he's in college, I'm in preschool. Like I don't really care. So do you feel like the age gaps definitely plays a role into that too?
Yeah. So
Okay.
what I usually tell parents is sibling conflict is inevitable. If you live in the house with somebody,
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a roommate, a lover, a relative, you're going to have conflict.
Yes.
Sibling rivalry
Yeah.
can be prevented.
Okay.
And so I think it's important to know that the rivalry, parents have a lot of influence on whether it happens or not.
Okay.
And it's just one simple little trick. And that is, well, it's a simple trick. It's not easy to do.
Okay. I'm so excited to
Okay.
hear.
So the simple trick is do not get involved in your children's squabbles. Because
And it's hard for parents not to
it
do
is
that
hard. It is hard because it's loud, et cetera. And I can
Yeah.
talk about how to do that.
though.
But
Yeah.
once I, as a parent, get involved, I'm choosing a side.
Oh, that's so true.
I can't not.
Yeah.
Well, you can not. I'm going to tell you how not to in a second. But if I'm getting involved, and the problem is I think I know what happened because I heard it or I saw it. But the truth is I didn't. And
You
I've
don't
got
have the full story there.
You don't. I've got the perfect example. Do you have time to?
Oh my gosh. I love an anecdote.
Okay.
You better.
So my older daughter
Yeah.
and my younger daughter, and they're about 2 years apart.
Okay.
So the younger daughter was hitting the older daughter a lot. And so my older daughter was like, "Well,
Yeah.
she hit me." I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
And we did call the younger one Bam Bam because she had like
This monster.
blonde hair,
Yeah.
right? She's like, "Rrr." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like this is bad."
Yeah.
I feel terrible for my older daughter.
Yeah.
Poor thing, right?
Yeah.
So then one day, divine intervention, I asked my older daughter, "So what happened right before she hit you?"
Yeah.
Because this is happening so often. And she goes, "Well, I was teaching her how to blah, blah." Girl, you were bossing your little sister around, and your little sister doesn't have a lot of words yet. The
So
only
she's
thing
gotta
she knows
do-
how to do is like bang.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah.
And then you cry, and
Yeah.
she's like watching, like, "Wow, I'm very powerful."
I gotta keep
can
doing
make her
this.
run them off.
Yeah. Yes. So how can parents, because I'm sure that's so stressful if you're hearing your children fight, which a lot of parents, especially if they don't like confrontation in their own lives, probably hate to hear this downstairs, especially if they're trying to do their bubble bath with their glass of wine. So how can parents actually stay out of it? Is it really just like locking themselves in their room and being like, let me put on my movie and just ignore it as best as I can? Is it coming and communicating with them, but being like, you guys need to talk this through, but I'm staying out of it? Like, how can they go about that situation?
So the 6 steps really help.
Okay.
Because you have a mission statement
Yeah.
and you have a vision for each child. So
Okay.
on that mission statement, you get to say, let's say something like, in this home, we behave respectfully to each other.
Love that.
So, and then when you have your family meetings, one of the results of the family meetings is that you'll end up with 5 or fewer family agreements.
Ah,
And
okay.
so one of the agreements might echo what's in your family mission statement, like we treat each other respectfully.
Yeah.
We agree that we're going to treat each other respectfully.
I like that
So
a lot.
then Jim Bob is not so nice to
Jim
Susie
Bob.
Q.
Yeah.
Those are my names.
I love it. Yeah. He's come up
So
quite a bit.
Jim Bob, Jim Bob,
Yeah.
I just saw you pinch Susie Q.
Mm-hmm.
Was that being respectful to your sister? Now I'm holding him accountable
Yeah.
for his behavior. I don't care what happened before.
Yeah.
I'm just asking, is that we have agreement that we're going to be respectful
Yes.
to
This
each other.
thing you already
Was
know
that
about.
respectful behavior?
That's really good.
And he's going to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say, okay, what do you think you need to do?
Yeah.
Because y'all
They
do
already
not tell them to apologize. They already know.
know. Mm-hmm.
I'll handle it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then they handle it.
Yeah.
But that's just for like little interruptions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or eruptions, I should say.
Yes.
The way you teach the kids how to get there, because most of my clients, they're not with me for long term. They come to me because things have gotten so bad.
Yeah.
I say we have I'm trying to see how to say it very briefly. So I have a system, it's called shared tickets.
Okay.
And without going into the whole thing, what happens is if they are disturbing the family peace, then you can go in and say, y'all just lost a ticket.
Oh.
So not one of them, both of them.
Yeah.
And in order for them to have dessert, pick the movie, I don't know, something that they usually get to do
that they're
and they
excited
enjoy,
about.
they're excited about.
Yeah.
They have to have at least one ticket left. So we're not demanding perfection.
Yeah.
They're too loud. You say, guys, you're disturbing the family peace. I can't hear myself think, or I'm, whatever. So you both just lost a ticket.
Yeah.
And you do that. And then once they lose that last ticket, they both lose a privilege that they're used to.
Wow. That's good because it's like it takes two to tango. You guys are both in this disagreement for something. So I'm going to hold you both accountable to that. And that's really good. So then the parent's not taking one side and the other child feels ostracized, or like the parents choosing favorites too. With sibling rivalries, how often do you feel like they're formed because the parents are, I don't want to say pitting the children against each other, but maybe comparing one child to the other? Oh, see your older brother, he's getting all the good grades. You're not doing this as well. How often do you see them forming because of the parents' actions in itself too?
100% of the time.
That's so scary.
I think it's maybe I should make 99%.
Yeah.
There may be cases where just a person's personality is just always going to feel less than or something. But parents are incredibly influential over children.
Yeah.
We're like their first idea of a god.
Yeah.
Right?
No, actually, I don't know anything else, but I know my mom is everything to
Exactly.
me. Yeah, 100%.
So it's really important that we are careful. We're going to mess up, y'all. There's no perfect parent. We're going to mess up in a million ways, and that's okay because people are resilient.
Yep.
But, Jim Bob makes such good grades, Susie Q. I guess maybe you could, maybe you don't have to go to college.
Oof.
Like, you don't want to do that. Everybody, but you don't want to lie either. Because let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Now here's another one. They're going to at me on
No.
this one too. You can't be anything you want.
I agree.
You can't.
I agree.
If I wanted to be an astronaut, no. First of all, I don't have the math skills.
Me neither.
Or the science skills.
I'm never going to the moon.
Right.
No.
But I get car sick.
Yeah.
I'm already at a handicap. Even if I could figure out the math, which I can't. No.
Yeah.
I get motion sickness.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to be I'm not going to like get a tennis scholarship.
Yeah.
My hand-eye coordination, it's just
not
not that
there.
good. And I'm not that motivated.
Yeah.
Honestly. So like that's not going to happen either. Some people will.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
You can tell children, if this is something you're interested, I'm going to support you. Let's see how I can help you.
Yeah.
But to tell a child you can do anything you want in this world, no, because some kids, don't want to go to college.
Exactly. It's not for everybody too.
Right.
And you don't want to set up unrealistic expectations if that's also something the kid doesn't want for themselves.
Right.
That's such good advice too. And I know we were kind of talking about with a parent when it comes to sibling rivalries, holding them accountable and taking the ticket away. I love all of that too. But we also in our intro kind of talked about how you can't treat every child exactly the same. You might have to use a different parenting technique or style with one kid versus the other because they're so different. But I'm also interested to hear how that may be harmful. For me, I grew up with two brothers. And so I see differences a lot in families with gender and then age. I think the babies of the family with age always get away with like everything. And for me, my parents were like, we had a boy and a girl already. We are so tired. Joshua like got away with so many things, I feel like. And my older brother, I think, was held to a different standard because he was the oldest and, trying to lead an example for us too. But then me, I feel like I had all of these weird rules set on me, which kind of makes sense to some extent, but very unfair and things that I still think about to this day too, because I was the only girl. So I had a curfew that my brothers didn't really have to abide by. When I was out with friends and going out, my mom would be like constantly checking my phone, but didn't really care about my brothers. And even when it came to talks about sex, it was so different. We grew up in a very religious household. So for my brothers, it was like, be safe. But for me, it was like abstinence and keeping yourself in that. Just very, very different. So how can a parent try to attempt to treat their children the same, but also keeping in mind what you said of some kids are different and you might have to treat them differently? What does that look like too? Because I'm interested in here, like how that might eventually form a rivalry between siblings if they're like, well, that's not fair. You got these things and I didn't either.
Right.
What does that look like?
Oh my gosh, it's a very juicy conversation. So my statement, my little quote I'll give you for this is, fair is that everyone gets what they need, not that everybody gets the same thing.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here I only had girls. And so I'll tell you that girls are at risk.
Yeah.
And so for curfews and those kinds of things and drinking, it's more dangerous for girls.
Yeah.
We can't handle the volume of alcohol that a guy can.
Yeah.
There are just so many things to consider.
Yeah.
So that I understand. When they're younger, not so much. But there are some things that aren't fair, but that don't seem fair. But like my one daughter, if her head was not attached, I swear she would leave it. Even today, I'm like, walk with me in the parking lot. I'm like, she is going to get hit by a car. And she's in college, right? She's very, very bright.
Yeah.
And so if she left her folder at home and called me from the office and said, Mom, can you bring the folder? It's really important. I would say no. Even if I had the time, even if I was going to be going to the school anyway, I would say no.
Yeah, you're like in the parking lot with the folder.
I know. I'm
not
like,
going
I
in.
am not bringing it. Because she needs to learn to stop forgetting her dang folder.
Yeah.
The other daughter who never forgets anything, very fastidious.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll bring the folder.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can.
Yeah.
Of course I'll bring it.
Yeah.
Because that's not her issue.
Yeah.
And so the younger one, she really needed to learn the life lesson of make sure you have everything you need before you leave. The first one, she doesn't need to learn that lesson. She's got that lesson.
Yeah.
So that's how the vision helps you determine how to attend to different situations that require some kind of discipline to teach.
Yeah.
Because we want to teach our children so that they're capable when they're older. Then with your situation, sometimes it requires you have to sit down and have the conversation. I can understand.
Yeah.
It must feel really unfair.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
And I'm not changing your curfew.
Yeah. You will still be home by 1. And I had a great curfew, honestly, for high school. I'm like, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand that. And I love the point you brought up about fulfilling what they need in those situations. It's so interesting because you had 2 daughters too. And it seems like they're pretty close in age, fairly close, a few years. With sibling rivalries, do you see the rivalries being formed more often with the same sex of siblings versus different? Do you see more girl-girl pairs or boy-boy pairs putting themselves against each other in a competitive way more than a boy-girl pair, for example? I'm always fascinated to kind of learn about that.
I haven't noticed anything, but that would be very interesting to find out. I do know that, girls guys aren't you typically going into their sister's room and stealing sweaters.
Yeah.
Like, so for girls, they're going to be stealing their
Yeah.
clothes and they're going to be stealing their big brother's sweatshirt.
100%.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Do you feel like it's so interesting too? Because I feel like with sibling rivalries, they can be really beneficial in a way because the child is learning about themselves and learning that they're different than their sibling. How important is it, or is there a healthy aspect that comes from sibling rivalries because the child is learning that about differentiation and that I'm a unique person. I am different than my older sibling. I know we always talk about the negative impact of it, but are there any positives that may come from a rivalry being formed between siblings too?
Yeah, I think if the parents can be in attunement with their child enough where they say, yeah, your sister is in the gifted program
Yeah.
and you're not.
Yeah.
But what gifts do you have? And then you can just focus on that. A really good book for this is Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Mindset. Okay.
That's a really good book. And she's got at the end a few chapters, like one for teachers and coaches and one for parents.
Yeah.
And you could kind of honestly just cheat and read those chapters. But I was interested in the whole thing.
Yeah.
What do you like to do? Do you want to be like that? Because you can also do it, or you can do something else.
Yeah.
Giving them just pointing out things so they feel empowered in their own self.
Yes. They can find that thing that works for them. So then they have their own, or even if that's them going for the same thing, at least they made that decision for themselves and not because they feel like they need to do it because a parent was telling them to.
Right.
Going back to the parenting styles that we discussed at the beginning of the episode, do you feel like there's one parenting style that leads to sibling rivalries being formed more often? Maybe the authoritarian one, if there's a parent that's like control, and like you have to be this way, you have to be like your sibling, or maybe even like the permissive one where they're like, "La, do whatever you need to do," and then the siblings are like, "Well, Mom's not really giving me a lot. She's giving me so much attention here, and my sibling too. I feel like I need to be doing exactly what my sibling wants as well, so we're both getting love." Do you see a particular parenting style leading to that rivalry being formed more often as well?
Yeah, I would say either one. So I said the authoritarian is one side of the coin and permissive is the other.
Yep.
The coin, I didn't tell you, is called dysfunctional parenting. Like that's the name of the coin.
That's the one.
And so when you have that dysfunctional parenting, of course it's more likely.
Yeah.
What I would guess is if they have two children, they're each going to take a kid. And the dad is probably going to hammer on the older child.
Yeah.
The firstborn.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the dad is the authoritarian, and the mom, if she's the permissive parent, is going to like coddle the younger child. I think that in my mind, that's how I imagine it.
Yeah.
No evidence of that.
No, I feel like that totally makes sense. I'm thinking about my friends that came from two-parent households, and one's always super close with the mom, and one's, if it's a traditional family environment, and one's very super close with the dad. And typically the two siblings are very different from one another as well. But I do see that too. I don't know if you have any information for siblings that are so different, because I feel like that can kind of lead to these rivalries being formed, if that's just like differences in values, or your friends are really different, or you look at life differently. But it's always so fascinating to me because it's like, you guys were raised by the two same parents. You feel like you would be a bit more similar. Do you know what environmental factors are playing a role into kids being so different? Is it just when they go to school and then they start forming their own opinions about things because their friends have certain opinions about things? Or is it, again, stemming back from if a parent's just treating one differently than the other, they're going to feel very different from one another and kind of go in different paths in their lives too? What is affecting these children being so different than one another? I feel like my brothers, for example, we are very different, but way more similar in ways that I'd like to admit. We're all very stubborn. We're very like set in our ways. So there's so many similarities, I would say, between us more than differences. And I've seen that more in our adulthood. But in terms of general personality, very different. My brothers are the type of people that could not give a fuck about anything. For example, I'm like the people pleaser, like, what do I need to do to make this better? So, and I feel like that stemmed a little bit from maybe being the only girl and trying to prove myself in a different way as well. But what environmental factors do you may feel are allowing siblings to not be as compatible with one another as well?
Well, I think, first of all, I think we're all born with a personality.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of come into the world. I wish I knew how it works. I'd be so rich, right? It's interesting to think about. But I think that we just are like genetically, we're just gonna tend to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Now, so many factors. What if the house caught on fire? You know, when your older sibling
Yeah.
was born and you had to move, and then you had a second child. That first child is going to have so much from the trauma of a house burning down. You know what I mean?
Yes,
And then
100%.
divorce, or maybe a parent had an affair, but nobody talked about it. But the firstborn really picked up on something was off in the marriage.
Yeah.
They didn't get divorced. They resolved it.
Yeah.
Fine. But it still affects
Yeah.
the children.
Yeah.
You know, it could be anything. A grandparent dying, just moving, military family. There's so many. It's really hard to know.
Yeah.
Gender, where you live in the country.
Yep.
You know, because you're going to have a much different experience living in Manhattan than in Columbus, Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so interesting too. I love the examples that you brought up, especially with things that an older sibling might notice within the parents' relationship that a younger or middle sibling may not pick up as much. And then, of course, even the relationships with those parents might look a little differently after a while as well. And I'm so fascinated just to hear if a parent, so when children start comparing themselves to one another, I don't know if you have any tips for parents that I feel like can also be applied to someone that's comparing themselves as well, of how not to compare. I feel like that's such a hard thing to do because comparison, I know people say it's the thief of joy, but it's true. But it's also natural. It's something that we do in lives because I think we are all very competitive people, and it's a little bit in our nature to want to compare yourselves to others in terms of even your own success. So when a parent sees their child comparing themselves to their sibling, I love what you said about not lying. You don't have to lie to their face and be like, you're going to be an astronaut too, Johnny. Johnny's like, I don't even want to be a friggin' astronaut. But what can parents do in those situations, or a child can do in that situation, to not compare themselves to the sibling that they feel like they're not as adequate in whatever situation that looks like?
Well, I think you brought up a really good point. It's human, you know, so it's human. So I would talk to the child because it's not about what they think it's about.
Yeah.
They think it's about my sister's prettier, my brother's smarter.
Yeah.
That's what they think it's about. But that's not what it's about. It's about what is it that you can control. It's fine to admire your sibling for the strengths that they have.
Yeah.
What strengths do you have? Because if we focus on our strengths, we can grow those strengths. If we
Yes.
focus on our deficits, all we're going to do
Is focus on our deficits.
That's right.
Yeah.
What we pay attention to grows.
Yeah.
And that is research that's under positive psychology. They've done a ton of research on this.
Yeah.
And it's true. And so you can decide. And this goes back to choice theory. You can choose to be jealous of your sibling, or you can choose to focus on your strength and grow in those.
Wow.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
And you can choose to be miserable and compare yourself or worry about the likes on your Instagram, or you can do that if you want. Completely your choice. Or you can put your phone down and come have fun with me, or go, you know, hit some tennis balls, or, you know, you can do something else.
Yeah.
But reminding children, no matter what their age, they do have power, they do have control, they do have agency. And that's really the choice theory. I just love it so much because you can choose to be miserable if you want. I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to love both of you equally. But if you want to think that I love your older sibling more, I don't know how to convince you otherwise. But that's your choice to believe that.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And you kind of have to go off what I'm saying in some situations, also what your parents' actions are. In so many cases, it's so easy, I think, for children to play victim of like, you love them more, you treat them better. But when you really do look, a lot of the time, because there are some cases where parents really do treat one child so way more differently than the other. And it is a little uncomfortable to see. But in a lot of the cases, it's just like this victim complex that you can kind of fall into because you're like, my life sucks. But then your sibling might be thinking the same thing. Well, you got this and you got this and we didn't get these things too. I think that's something my brothers and we always laugh about, is we all kind of felt that way growing up. And then we're like, well, we didn't know you felt that way. And they're like, well, I didn't know you felt that way. So it is just like your little brain trying to form and kind of communicate of whatever's happening in the world too. And for siblings that don't get along, do you feel like it's okay for people to normalize that more often? I feel like so many people especially within family settings, say to themselves, we need to be close. The siblings need to have your back. And of course, you love your family, but in a lot of cases, you may not get along with them. You may not want to form that relationship. Do you feel like it's okay for people, even parents, to normalize that, hey, my kids aren't that close and I'm okay with that? Because I love them equally. They may just not be as close as I was when I was growing up with my siblings, too.
Yeah, I think it is important to recognize that everybody has different personalities. And you know what? Oh, here's another at me moment.
Canceled.
Here we go. I know. Here we go. You might not like your adult children that much.
That's like my favorite thing. I think it's so funny.
I mean,
because it's so true. Because some
it's
people
so
actually
true.
suck. Yeah.
It's so true. You know, I'll take kind of an extreme example.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a child who just, maybe they have a personality disorder.
Mhm.
Not your fault, you know, just maybe there's something going on
Yeah.
or they struggle with mental illness. It's hard to spend time with that child.
Yeah.
It does not mean you do not love that child. And
Yes.
it does not mean that you are not there for your child.
Yeah.
But spending a lot of time with that adult child is taxing and stressful. And setting good,
Mm.
healthy limits and boundaries might be the most loving thing you can do for
Yeah.
that child.
Yeah.
Maybe your child just is bound and determined to be an annoying person, no matter how much therapy you gave them, or, you know, maybe I don't know.
It's true.
It doesn't mean you have to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, you can still love that person. If you are in a romantic relationship that's for more than 7 years,
Mhm.
you love that person
Yeah.
in spite of all the annoyances.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so I think we should normalize it. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
This idea, it's almost like, you know, the Kleenex commercials around the Olympics where, like, oh, thanks for the tissue, mom. You know, thanks for, you know, and it's always the mom
Yeah.
freezing at the ice rink. Like,
Yeah.
I would
You
not be
won't
that
catch
mom.
me out there.
No, I'm not going to be cold. Sorry. I'm just not that good of a mother. But this idea that to be a good mother, you have to sacrifice. And it's just, no, I am a human being too.
Yeah.
And I deserve a life too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that I need to hang out with you if you suck low key.
Right. If
So
you're
important.
going to be, let's say I wasn't a good mom.
Yeah.
Let's say I was let me rephrase that. Let's say I was not a very effective
Yeah.
mother
Yeah.
and I was very permissive.
Yeah.
Because of a million reasons, it doesn't matter, but I was.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm an adult and my child is an adult and my child is rude and demanding and doesn't respect me,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to spend time with that child.
100%.
I can go to therapy. I can forgive myself. I can ask my child to go to therapy with
Yep.
me. I can do a lot of things, but I do not have to put myself in a situation where I'm being treated disrespectfully.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such good advice because I feel like so many parents have this shame or guilt kind of around that. Like, this is my child. I need to. But you're so right in some situations. That child, even at 25, 26, 27 years old, a clear adult, might be treating their parents like absolute shit. And it does make me so sad seeing those relationships and the parent feels this need to continue growing that in whatever way, even though the child may not be feeling the same sense of urgency to repair that relationship, or they're so unaware that they're treating their parent like this too.
Yeah.
Really sad to see. And I feel like with sibling rivalries too, so many of them can go into adulthood. And I think a lot of the time it's something that siblings might be super competitive against each other when they're like in middle school and high school, and then they get to college and they kind of have their own lives afterwards and they kind of grow out of that. I think my older brother and I were weirdly competitive against each other because we went to the same middle school. We had a lot of overlap. And so there was a lot of comparison with grades and athletics and friendships and what that looked like. But I feel like we have been able to grow out of that in time because of different lives. And I love his wife and just seeing each other in a different light than I think you can when you're 10. Why do you feel like, though, in some cases, sibling rivalries might expand into adulthood? Does it go back to your point that you just mentioned? In some cases, some people just suck. And some people you're just not going to be compatible with and like, or can it stem back to parents, even in their older age, still comparing themselves and having those children kind of be weirdly competitive against each other? Oh, did you hear what your brother did? He just got the law firm head. You haven't done anything. What's going on with you? Why just sibling rivalries? Why might they go into adulthood as well?
Yeah. Well, once you're an adult, again, you choose.
Mm-hmm.
You are choosing, and you can choose to carry the torch and continue on, or you can put it down.
Yeah.
And it's really that simple. And it's very hard because, so for example, the woman, I think it was a woman who wrote in, she's probably ambivalent because as I was thinking about this on the way here.
Yeah.
There's probably a part of her that really yearns to be close to her sister. And you've got a big sister and she's going to college and that's scary. And what does that mean for a relationship? And I'm going to miss her and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I'm really mad because of XYZ. And because you're the one writing in, so now I'm talking to her.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're the one who has to make a change.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I know. So I'm going to tell you a little story.
Yeah.
There was this woman and her older sister just hated her. Her whole life just hated her. It was like mean to her. They weren't close, nothing.
Yeah.
And she decided, this younger sister said, she was probably in her 40s.
Yeah.
She called her sister up one day, her older sister, and said, hey, I just want to apologize.
Wow. The younger sister
The
did?
younger sister did. And you know what the older sister said?
What?
She goes, well, I've been waiting my whole life to hear you say that.
What?
I know it.
Even though the older sister was being like
Yes.
the rude one?
Yes.
Where was
But
that stemming from?
You know what? She never found out. And what she said was, I guess she was mad at me for being born. I have no idea.
Wow.
And you know what?
Actually, though, that's kind of what it sounds like.
I know. And then they were much closer after that.
Wow.
So my advice, as hard as it is to hear,
Yeah.
if you are the sibling who is yearning for a better relationship,
Wow.
make a phone call. Do not text.
Phone call.
My young people do not text. I know it's a
ChatGPT,
£1,000
how do
phone.
I talk to
Right.
my sibling about this?
I know. And I want you to just call them up and say, hey, can we have a quick phone call? I owe you an apology. They will call you back so fast because everybody loves a good apology.
Little drama.
Apologize to me. So just then when they get on the phone, say, hey, I just want to say I love you. I want us to be close and I am so sorry.
Yeah.
And you don't have to specify anything. You can just apologize. Now, some of you listening to this are choking right now. You're like, there's
sweat down their
not gonna happen,
spines. Yeah.
right? I know. Well, then that's what you need to work on.
Yeah.
Because if you want the relationship, you've got to decide what's more important, my pride and my ego or my relationship with my sibling.
Yeah. Do you feel like so many people won't initiate that conversation because of the pride and ego or because of the fear of rejection? They're afraid that, hey, I'm so sorry, I want to build this relationship. No, I do not want that relationship with you. You are 20 years late, not about it. Because for me, I'm a very prideful person, but I think a lot of the time I use that as an excuse, honestly, knowing that there might be rejection down the road. Like, I'm prideful. I don't need to give them my time, blah, blah, blah. Really, I'm afraid that if I give them the call, they might not want that same relationship. So how can someone get over that fear of rejection? And then how can they go about it if the sibling's like, you know what, I don't want that relationship with you? What are some things they can implement in their lives to not feel so rejected? Or you're going to feel rejected, and that's a normal feeling to kind of go through. But how can they move on from that situation if a sibling doesn't want to have that same relationship with them later in life?
Yeah, that would be very painful.
Yeah.
That would be very painful. And, get a therapist, man.
Yeah, actually, you might need one after that.
Because that's going to be it's painful. It's probably humiliating. And then the grief. You have to deal with the grief of the fantasy of the relationship that you dreamed of having.
Yeah.
You got to grieve that.
Yeah.
But it's okay. People grieve all the time.
Yeah.
This is a normal part of being human. I'm not saying I'm good at it. I just want to say I need help too. So yeah, it's very difficult, but you can do it with the proper support and the proper help. But if you avoid it, you're never going to know. That's worse.
The not knowing. Yeah. The
Yeah.
what if. Yeah.
And then if,
Yeah.
let's say you're rejected, then you're like, okay, now I can move on with my life.
Yeah.
And now I can get busy accepting the fact I'm not going to have a close relationship with my sister. And then you can, that's how people get over things.
Yeah.
It's that acceptance.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And that's such an extreme situation, obviously. I think 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the example that you use of the older sibling being like, thank God. And I would low-key so glad it wasn't me, because I'd be like, okay, well, what did I do? But she handled that so perfectly. And I'm glad they are, continuing on and building their relationship. So my last question for you is, with sibling rivalries, even from a parent standpoint or a child standpoint, how can children and parents combat sibling rivalries? Try to get away from that. I think, friendly competition is healthy and good and something that's going to set you up for success, but obviously not getting to a point where it becomes harmful. What advice would you want to offer to this person who's gone through the sibling rivalry with their sister for, it seems like, most of their life, but wants to kind of build upon it and get away from that and form a new relationship with them as well?
Okay, so maybe 3 things.
Yeah.
So the first thing is advice to the kids who are still at home, still living together. Here's my advice. When your sibling is trying to fight with you or being grumpy or whatever, let's say it's 2 boys and they love sports and love throwing a football in the backyard. Okay. Yeah. So the younger brother says to the older brother, look, I'm not going to fight with you about this, but you know what? Let's go throw a football. Offer an alternative.
Love it.
Right. So you can, however you can extrapolate that to an adult or younger, like just do that. Offer an alternative. You know what? I don't want to fight with you, but you know what? Macy's is having a really good sale. Let's go.
Yeah. I love a shopping spree. Yes.
Right. So pick something.
Yeah.
For families, you can start a practice of most families, a lot of families are not eating dinner together.
That's so true.
And it's really, the studies show that is a common ingredient for successful college students.
I believe that.
So there's a whole study, it was done at Yale, et cetera. So what you can do is at night when you're having dinner or as part of your bedtime routine, if you've got too many sports and you don't have dinner together, you just say one thing you're grateful for someone else.
Oh, I love that.
What do you appreciate about your family member? And you just practice that throughout.
Wow. That's really
maybe
great.
Breakfast, maybe dinner. I don't know how you want to do it.
Yeah.
So that's for families. And then for this young woman who wrote in pretty courageously, because this is a sad situation for her. Yeah. My advice, I think, would be, what do you really want? If you want a good relationship, you're going to have one. But you have to make that decision. You're the one who's upset about it. You're going to have to. It doesn't mean you're groveling. That is not what I mean at all. Yeah. But you have to decide to let go of things and forgive her for things. Yeah. And you can even go to your mom and be like, all right, this is what I think. Set me straight.
Yeah.
Help me change my mind about this. But it really feels like you liked her more or whatever the issues are. Yeah. Address those or completely let them go for real.
I love that advice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then start fresh because you can do it. You can have a good relationship with her. And now that she's going to college, it's probably going to be better.
You have a little bit of space away, which honestly helps so much more. Yeah. I think that's so true. The space away, honestly, I think weirdly enough allows you to feel so much closer with your sibling, because sometimes the physical space and being on top of each other in a household, for anyone that has siblings, you get it. It is so easy to get into the littlest, stupidest arguments just because it's like, we're sharing a bathroom. I see you in the morning. We're riding to school together. So it allows you to kind of miss that person and appreciate them in a light that you may not have been able to see, knowing that you guys were on top of each other for 18 plus years, whatever that looks like too.
And if all else fails, text them, call them, just for the one reason to complain about a parent or another sibling, and then y'all will get close.
Find a common enemy. That's the best piece of advice. Ending on this note, just last words, what do you feel like is the most special part of a sibling relationship? I saw this thing on TikTok the other day that was saying, where I get all my research, obviously. We're just saying your siblings are the people that are going to know you longest in life. They were like, especially if you're a younger sibling, they knew you since you were born, and they see you in your most vulnerable aspects of your day to day. Like my family, as worse as like crazy as I can be at home, probably knows me the best in the sense that I don't have to put on a front or a face when I'm with them because this is my place of comfort. And so I'm glad that my siblings, and they would say maybe the worst parts of me, have been able to see me and honestly my lowest points of my life too. What would you say is, what do you believe is the most special part of a sibling relationship?
I feel like it's kind of dark. I feel like our siblings, they're the ones who went through all the family trauma with you,
True.
right?
They get
Like
it.
they're the ones that'll be like, oh my God, remember when Uncle Joe got really drunk and he threw up all over,
Yes.
like, and it scared us? Or do you remember when this? And do you remember when that weird guy was walking in the neighborhood?
And then you say to your parents and they forget. They're like, when did
What do
that
you-
happen?
Yeah, that never happened. And we're
guys
like,
have a memory
is that
of
right? So
anything.
they're like the mental health check with
Yeah.
each other. Like, am I crazy? Or
Did this
so I
happen?
think, you know, it's kind of like when people survive a shipwreck together.
Yeah.
There's a special bond.
Mm.
You know, I think most families, they're a little bit of a shipwreck because
Everyone,
we're
yeah.
human. Like
Yeah.
there are no perfect families. There
No.
are no perfect parents.
No.
And they're the ones who went through it with you.
Yeah.
And so they were witness to all of it with
Yeah.
you. And I think that's the most powerful thing.
Thank you so much for joining today, Susan. This was an amazing episode. I'm going to let you plug all of your information, where to find you for any parents that you want to help coach and give these amazing skills to in Atlanta. So plug away.
Okay, so you can find me at parentcoachatlanta.com. And if you go on there, if you do parentcoachatlanta.com/behavior
Oh,
dash
okay.
audit, I just work with parents just for about an hour,
Okay.
and we dig deep and we find out what is the source of the problems and how to solve it. And you get a report afterwards. It's just a really low entry fee. But parentcoachatlanta.com, or if you just Google Susan Morley, my Google ads work pretty well. So you can you can find me on Google.
You guys know where to find her. Don't forget the dashes she mentioned too. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Unlicensed today. I know this has been one of my favorite ones. So informative, so educational too. If you guys want to vent about anything going on in your life, we obviously talked about sibling rivalries, manifestation, dating, relationships, career, your boss is annoying you at work, you need to call HR, literally whatever it is, you guys know where to fill out that advice form on my Instagram or my TikTok at Unlicensed Advice. Also my website, www.unlicensedpodcast.com. But I love you guys and I'll see you next week.